Most people believe the woods are peaceful, a place to escape the noise of everyday life. But sometimes, hidden deep within the darkness, there are things we can't explain, things that watch, things that wait, and sometimes things that should never be found. Tonight I'll be sharing 3 disturbing camping horror stories. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself. This is Nightmare Archives. Story 1. The Campsite Across the Lake. In the fall of 2023, a 26-year-old man named Ryan decided to spend a weekend camping alone in a remote forest. He had been camping for years and preferred isolated locations where he could escape the noise of cities. After several hours of driving, he reached a small lake hidden deep within the woods. The location was perfect. The water was calm, the trees completely surrounded the shoreline, and most importantly, there wasn't another camper in sight. Ryan set up his tent near the edge of the lake and spent the afternoon fishing. As evening arrived, the temperature dropped rapidly. He cooked dinner over a small campfire and watched the sunset disappear behind the trees. Everything felt peaceful. Around 10 p.m., Ryan climbed into his tent and prepared to sleep. Before zipping the tent closed, he looked across the lake one final time. That's when he noticed something strange. A light, a single orange light shining through the trees on the opposite shore. At first, he assumed another camper had arrived. There was nothing unusual about that, but what bothered him was the location. The opposite side of the lake wasn't a designated camping area. In fact, according to the map he had checked earlier, there weren't supposed to be any campsites there at all. Still, Ryan ignored it and went to sleep. Several hours later, he woke up. The first thing he noticed was silence. The second thing he noticed was that the light was still there. He checked his phone, 3:14 a.m. Curious, he stepped outside. The lake was completely still. The orange light continued glowing through the trees on the opposite shore, and then he realized something. The light hadn't moved even slightly. Most campfires flicker, flashlights move, lanterns sway. This light remained perfectly motionless. Ryan stared at it for nearly a minute. Then it disappeared. Instantly. No fading, no movement. 1 second it was there. The next second, it wasn't. A strange feeling settled in his stomach. He returned to the tent and somehow managed to fall asleep. The next morning, he decided to investigate. After breakfast, Ryan walked around the shoreline toward the opposite side of the lake. The hike took nearly an hour. When he finally reached the location where he had seen the light, he found something unexpected. A campsite, but it looked abandoned. The fire pit was old, the ground was overgrown, and several rusted objects were scattered among the trees. It looked as though nobody had been there for years. Ryan searched the area for a while. There was no sign of recent activity, no footprints, no trash, nothing. Confused, he returned to his campsite. That evening, he once again sat beside the fire and watched darkness consume the forest. Around 9 p.m., he looked across the lake. The orange light was back, exactly where it had been the night before. Ryan felt a chill run through his body. This time, he decided to record it. He pulled out his phone and began filming. For almost 20 minutes, the light remained completely still. Then something appeared beside it. A figure, a tall, dark silhouette standing motionless near the light. Ryan froze. The figure didn't move. It simply stood there, watching the lake, watching him. The distance made it impossible to identify details, but he knew one thing. There was definitely someone there. After several minutes, the figure slowly stepped behind a tree and disappeared. The light remained visible for another hour before vanishing again. The next morning, Ryan packed his belongings and left. The experience unsettled him, but he eventually convinced himself there had to be a logical explanation. Several weeks later, curiosity got the better of him. He contacted a local ranger and described what he had seen. The ranger became unusually quiet. After a long pause, he asked Ryan exactly where the abandoned campsite was located. Ryan showed him on a map. The ranger stared at the location for several seconds. Then he said something Ryan would never forget. "You're not the first person to report lights there." Ryan asked what he meant. The ranger explained that for years, visitors had reported seeing a mysterious orange light on the opposite side of the lake. Some claimed they saw a person standing beside it. Others claimed they heard voices coming from the shoreline late at night. But every investigation led to the same result. Nothing. No campers, no buildings, no explanation. Ryan never returned to that lake. To this day, he still has the video saved on his phone. And according to him, whenever he watches it, he notices something he didn't see that night. The dark figure wasn't looking at the lake. It was looking directly at him. Story 2. The Whistling in the Woods. Matthew and his cousin Eric had been planning their camping trip for months. The location they chose was deep within a national forest, several miles from the nearest road. The first day was uneventful. They hiked, explored the area, and spent the evening sitting beside a fire. As darkness settled over the forest, the atmosphere changed. The woods became unnaturally quiet. No birds, no insects, nothing. At around midnight, Eric heard a faint whistle. 3 short notes, almost like someone trying to get another person's attention. At first, they ignored it, but several minutes later, the whistle returned. This time, it sounded closer. Matthew grabbed a flashlight and scanned the trees. Nothing. The forest remained completely dark. About 20 minutes passed. Then the whistle came again, even closer. The 2 cousins began to feel uneasy. There weren't supposed to be any other campers nearby. And if there were, why would someone be wandering through the forest at midnight? Eventually, they decided to go to sleep. At approximately 2:30 a.m., Matthew woke up. The whistle had returned, but now it was directly outside the campsite. 3 short notes. Silence. 3 short notes again. Matthew listened carefully. Then he heard something else. Footsteps. Slow footsteps moving through the leaves, circling the campsite. His heart started racing. He woke Eric immediately. Both of them listened. The footsteps continued. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They seemed to be moving around the tents, as if someone was examining them. Suddenly, the whistling stopped. Everything became silent. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Then a voice emerged from the darkness. "Hello?" The voice sounded strange, almost mechanical, as though someone was trying to imitate human speech. Neither of them answered. Several moments later, the voice returned. "Hello?" This time it sounded closer, much closer. Matthew grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. The campsite was empty. No person, no animal, nothing. The voice stopped instantly. Unable to sleep, they remained awake until sunrise. The next morning, they searched the surrounding area. A few hundred feet from camp, they found something disturbing. A large circle of footprints, dozens of them, all surrounding a cluster of trees. And every footprint appeared fresh. Neither cousin could explain it. They packed immediately and left. Several weeks later, Matthew researched the area online. He discovered numerous reports from campers describing an identical whistle. Most stories ended the same way: a whistle, footsteps, and a voice in the darkness asking for help. Nobody ever discovered who or what was making the sound. Story 3: The Camera That Kept Recording. Tyler was an amateur filmmaker who loved documenting his outdoor adventures. Whenever he went camping, he carried multiple cameras. In the summer of 2024, he decided to spend 3 nights in a remote forest known for its scenic hiking trails. The trip began normally. On the first day, he recorded footage of the lake, the surrounding mountains, and his campsite. Before going to bed, Tyler positioned one camera outside his tent. The camera was set to record continuously throughout the night. He hoped to capture wildlife. The following morning, he reviewed the footage. Most of it showed nothing but darkness, until around 3:41 a.m. At that exact moment, the camera suddenly shifted, as if someone had touched it. The image moved slightly to the left. Tyler assumed an animal had bumped into the tripod. But as he continued watching, he noticed something disturbing. For several frames, a dark figure appeared between the trees. The figure stood completely motionless, watching the tent. Tyler paused the footage, zoomed in, and felt a chill run down his spine. The shape looked human, but it was impossible to identify details. The image quality was too poor. That night, Tyler repositioned the camera and continued recording. He expected nothing unusual. The next morning, he reviewed the footage again. This time, the figure appeared much closer, standing only a short distance from the tent. Tyler became concerned. Someone had clearly entered his campsite during the night. Yet he had heard nothing. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. Unsure what to do, he decided to stay one final night. Before sleeping, he checked the camera repeatedly. Everything appeared normal. At approximately 4 a.m., Tyler suddenly woke up. A feeling of dread washed over him. Something felt wrong. The forest was silent, completely silent. He listened carefully. Then he heard breathing outside the tent. Slow, heavy breathing. Tyler remained frozen. The sound continued for several minutes. Eventually, it stopped. He never opened the tent. He waited for sunrise. As soon as daylight appeared, he packed his gear and left. Later that evening, he reviewed the final recording. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then he reached 4:03 a.m. The camera captured a figure emerging from the trees. The person slowly approached the tent. Closer, 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 until they stood directly in front of the camera. For nearly 2 minutes, the figure remained motionless. Then something terrifying happened. The person leaned toward the lens and smiled. A wide, unnatural smile, before reaching forward and turning the camera off. Tyler never returned to that forest, and according to him, he never showed the footage to anyone, because every time he watches it, he notices a second figure standing behind the first one, watching from the darkness. Some stories have explanations, others remain mysteries, and perhaps that's what makes them truly terrifying. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, be sure to subscribe to Nightmare Archives for more horror stories every week. And remember, if something in the darkness is watching you, it's already too late. Good night.